But I want to begin by saying welcome to Boston, one of the greatest cities in the world. So thank you very much for being in Boston. And happy birthday, NCDA. Welcome to the NCDA Global Career Development Conference. I'm Rich Feller, and proud as anyone could be to serve as its president. During this centennial year is quite remarkable. I am honored and delighted that our conference is sold out. The largest gathering of NCDA ever, with over 100 international guests, 500 first-timers, people from 30 countries. We're all together as a family. On behalf of the NCDA Board of Directors, we welcome all of you to the NCDA conference. We plan to celebrate 100 years of career development about creating hope, social justice, and legacy. Our agenda is pretty simple. We're going to have a series of introductions of people who are very important to all of us, and it's a way to honor those who have taught us and led us and encouraged us forward. We'll have a short videotape that I hope you'll find touched by, because it's conversations with people who do our work. And then we'll find a truly remarkable speaker who will speak about the importance of being a human being to its fullest extent. So we welcome you again. We look forward to joining you, and let's begin. NCDA started in Boston in 1913. For years we have experienced strong leadership and management. I'd like to take a moment to introduce some of the leaders from the past and present who are with us at this very special centennial celebration. From 1913 to 1982, NCDA was a fully volunteer organization. The boards of directors who operated the association and shared the responsibility for the success of the organization certainly were a big part of what was happening during that period. Neil Carey in 1982, we hired a part-time executive director, and Neil was asked to provide management services through the American Counseling Association's office in Alexandria, Virginia. Neil helped lead the organization from 1985 to 1994 when he retired. Neil has continued to be an advocate for NCDA and just recently assumed the position of chair of the NCDA Government Relations Committee. Please help me welcome Neil Carey. Neil, would you please stand? Juliet Miller. In 1994, NCDA hired Julie Miller, a past NCDA president, to become the association's second executive director. In 1995, NCDA's operations were moved to Columbus, Ohio. During this time, NCDA expanded its operations and assumed the management of the Career Development Facilitator Program from the National Occupational Information Coordinating Committee. NCDA has launched its first website at that time. The NCDA conference was expanded, and the decision was made to host it annually. Prior to that, the NCDA conference was hosted every 18 months. Julie, too, has remained a significant and strong advocate to NCDA by serving on the board of directors after her retirement. Please help me welcome Juliet Miller. Deneen Pennington. Upon Juliet's retirement, the NCDA board utilized an association management company to provide NCDA's management services. Creative Management Alliance from Tulsa, Oklahoma was awarded the 3-year contract, and Deneen Pennington became the executive director in 2001. Deneen had previously worked with the NCDA organization providing event management services for NCDA's conference and regional PDIs. She and her staff have continued to assist with NCDA's growth, as you see it today specifically. Please welcome NCDA Executive Director Deneen Pennington. NCDA has been privileged to have 9 members who have served as National NCDA President, who went on to serve as ACA President, and were awarded the NCDA's highest honor, the Eminent Career Award. We affectionately call them the Super 9. Of these 9 members, 5 are in attendance with us today. I want you to see these dynamic leaders who have advocated so strongly on your behalf, making NCDA the vibrant and recognized leader in career development around the world. Donald Super, NCDA pioneer and theorist, served NCDA up until his death in 1994. Dr. Ken Hoyt, an equally strong advocate for NCDA, served until his death in 2012. Many of us may not remember Dr. Edward Rober, who was also an early influence for NCDA. He served us until his death in 1969. Dr. Edwin Herr, who was unable to attend with much regret this conference, also served in many capacities during his leadership and tenure. And with us in the audience today, or as you see in front of you, I'd ask them to stand because I'd like to introduce you to Norm Geispers. Please stand. Dr. Sonny Hansen. Dr. Lee Richmond. Dr. Jane Goodman. Dr. Mark Pope. We look upon you and thank you with tremendous respect and acknowledgement for the wonderful courage and demonstration of advocacy throughout your careers. And we're grateful for what you've done for NCDA and to all of us personally. We thank you with much gratitude. Which gives us more time to honor those who certainly have led us the way. Thank you, dear. Thank you. Thanks, Lee. Thank you for being here. Thank you, dear. Thank you, Sonny. It was a privilege. Thank you, dear. Oh, my pleasure, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich.
We have other VIPs that I'd like to bring to your attention. As I read your name, could I please ask you to stand? Each of these past Eminent Career Award winners should be recognized for the kind of gifts they've given us about theory, ideas, research, and leadership. So I'd ask you all to please hold your applause till the end. Norm Geispers, please. John Krumboltz. Sonny Hansen. David Jepson. Mark Savickas, Gary Walls, Joanne Harris-Bowlesby, James Sampson, Lee Richmond, Robert Reardon, Thomas Harrington, Jane Goodman, Spencer Niles, Mark Pope, Rich Feller, Itamar Gotti, Dennis Engels, and Robert Chope. Would you please turn and acknowledge your audience? And can I ask Dr. Bob Chope to please join me at the podium, the 2002 recipient, to come forward to announce this year's winner. Yeah.
Hello. In the celebration of our Bostonian roots, I remind you that our very first Eminent Career Award was presented in 1966 to Ann Rowe. She was the director of Harvard Center for Research on Careers just a short boat ride up the Charles River from where we meet today. Today, our honoree's impressive career biography is available in your program. As a leader, he should be titled Mr. President because he was the head of 4 organizations: our NCDA, the Michigan CDA, the Michigan ACES, and the Center for Credentialing and Education. He was also a leader as the department chair of counseling at Wayne State University in Detroit and Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. At Oakland, he founded and directed the Adult Career Counseling Center. But his proudest achievements, he says, really are as a practitioner, and Howard has done it all, as an elementary, middle school, high school, and college counselor. He continues today as a career development consultant. His focus has been on career education in the schools, heavily influenced, in fact, by Norm Geisber's work. And he specifies the importance of vocational guidance in the high schools in his writings. As a scholar, Howard was one of the original organizers of the NCDA Career Development Facilitator Curriculum, work that was described by Howard and Judy Hoppen in the March 2013 issue of our Career Development Quarterly. And by the way, they're doing a program tomorrow that's going to summarize that work. It'll be, I think, at the noon meeting, and I would urge you to attend that. Howard's research program established the need for the CDF. His ideas about curriculum instigated the training content, and his political acumen led to the foundation of a certification mechanism. Few other innovations have had the impact of expanding career resources for the general public as the GCDF. There are now over 18,000 practitioners in 14 countries. What a terrific impact on our profession. By the way, any of you CDFs, could you just stand up for a second? On a personal note, I'm a Michigandarian or a Wolverine. I was born in Harper Hospital in Detroit, and I'm proud to bring forward another Michigandarian, Howard Spleet, our eminent career award winner.
Wow. It's quite an honor, and I'm quite thrilled to receive it from this organization. I better start going here, or I'll get all choked up. It's easier to read than try to remember it. This recognition would not have occurred unless I had not been involved in many of the activities of NCDA. I'm very pleased that Bob mentioned Judy Hoppen. The Career Development Facilitator Program really was facilitated and organized by myself and Judy Hoppen. Judy, I want to thank you. Where are you? Sitting right here. Thank you very much, Judy. You put up with a lot of nonsense from me. And we actually worked quite hard, and very pleased to see the success of this operation. Also, all of the people who've been through the CDF training, the master trainers, the instructors, the CDF participants, I want to thank you, because this program wouldn't have been successful without your hard work in the field. And I really appreciate everybody who's been through this program and worked with it. Thank you all very much. Just a couple of things I'm not going to take. I wanted 50 minutes and they gave me 5. So. A little bit about my history. As Bob mentioned, I worked in public schools for about half my career. Then I went into university work, and that started with an NCDA grant at Michigan State University. And I was a little disappointed with the program at a time, but I was supported and encouraged by a guy named Jim Koster at Michigan State. And I always want to recognize his impact on me. After I completed my degree at MSU, I still worked in schools and career counseling centers. And then I was recruited by Wayne State University, in particular Dr. George Leonard, who was really a mentor for me. As I came into Wayne State University, he introduced me into the real rigorous research methods that I should follow, encouraged the writing that I did, articles and books and so forth, and also encouraged my membership in the National Vocational Guidance Association. I think that translates to Career Development Association now. But thank you very much, George. You'll always be a mentor to me. When I moved from Wayne State to Oakland University, I had the real pleasure of working with Jane Goodman, who, of course, helped me with the Adult Career Counseling Center, helped us put together a specialty in the career counseling field, post-master's program, which led to part of a doctoral program, and also harmonized with me on some folk songs on occasion. Jane, thank you very much, Jane. A couple of other people who influenced me greatly have already been recognized, but I want to repeat their influence on me and my practice. Number one is Norm Geisbers. Norm really put together, and I want to get this comprehensive thing right, Norm, a program which was called the Missouri Comprehensive Career Guidance Program. Is that correct? Okay. That program from Missouri got translated across the country. We had a Michigan program very similar to it. Norm came, spent a lot of time and effort in helping us put it together in Michigan. What he did for us in Michigan, he did around the country. And right now, he should be recognized for the influence that he has on professional standards in school counseling, because the school counseling programs, as endorsed by ASCA, pardon me, American School Counselor Association, has incorporated his ideas that have proved so fruitful over the years. Norm, thank you very much for your mentorship and your contributions. A fellow named Jim Sampson was a young man when I first met him, a real go-getter, a hot ticket from Florida, and George Grisdale and I recognized his talents right away and tried to get him involved in a lot of professional institutes and activities, and we did. But Jim was very helpful to me in two particular ways. Number one, he introduced me to aspects of a career counseling center that were excellent. Florida State University had and still has an excellent career center based on curriculum, as I believe. And secondly, and probably as important, is the fact that Jim told me that technology wasn't all bad. This is from a guy who can't work his cell phone. So Jim helped me through a lot of his writings, a lot of his hands-on experience in making it realistic for old duffers like me to use technology. And one way to describe that is the fact he says, Howard, he said, you don't have to call it computerized career guidance. This is computer-assisted career guidance. And I still thank him for that. It keeps me honest all the time. Hey, I'm almost done. I figured 4 minutes, I think I'll make it. A special thanks to NCDA organization. All of the people who've worked as officers in the organization, all the people who have worked in the executive office, and I had the honor of working with all three of our executive directors. Neil Carey fought some political battles in Washington with me. Julie Miller kept me honest. And Deneen Pennington, even though she cheers for Oklahoma in football, has been very supportive where I'm going. So I want to thank the three of you for your excellent support, and that's really been meaningful to me. I want to mention Mary Ann Powell for her excellent work with the CDF project over the years, and appreciate her support and encouragement. Now, you've noticed that I've used the words encouragement and support quite a bit. I've told you about some of the people that have supported and encouraged me. If you look back at your own careers, you can think about people who helped you in your careers. And I think we all need to remember that. Regardless of what our position is, support and encouragement is very important. And I think one of the things that you need to recognize as members of this audience that you still have an obligation to encourage and support your professional colleagues. The people who are sitting next to you, the people you're working with, sometimes they don't get the support and encouragement they need. So please, 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 work with your colleagues in a very supportive way so that you can help them help others. Finally, best wishes to you all as you participate in this conference, and enjoy life. Thank you very much for the award.
Thanks, buddy. Good job, Paul. You know, as I watched Howard speaking, I saw some people in the back put their arm around their colleague. And I thought, what if we all did that more in life? And if you followed the footprints of Howard's speech, you'd see that throughout his life. So in some ways, let's give a little hug to each other on occasion. We're living in a city As someone who grew up in Woodstock, New York, I'm pretty encouraged. Howard, thank you very much. A remarkable career, and you've touched so many of us, and it's remarkable how kind you are to acknowledge so many other people that came before you. This is a real celebration of legacy.
We're all part of a team.
All part of a team. Thank you very much. We also are privileged to have 24 past presidents in attendance with us today. Can I have all past NCDA presidents stand as a group to be recognized? What a remarkable capacity of these individuals to do such. So I please ask you, I've gone far too far, if you don't mind, all past presidents to please stand. What a remarkable capacity for leadership, and what a large sense of big heart. We also want to acknowledge the fact that our current leadership has been a remarkable and effective resource to we as members. And they've worked on your behalf for a much longer year than it might seem, because the planning of this takes much longer than that. But we want to recognize those who have worked so hard for you to create this conference, but also to move us into our second century. Will all of the current and incoming new board members please stand as a group? It's also a great honor for me and privilege as NCDA president to talk about honoring what we normally call the Presidential Recognition Awards. But since this is NCDA's 100th anniversary, we've changed the name to be called the Centennial Award Winners, and have selected 5 recipients. This award is available because we recognize that these exceptional people have made contributions which truly have advanced the growth, the recognition, and the impact of NCDA. 5 people who have certainly touched every one of us in this room, and I'd like to tell a little bit of story how that's happened. I'd like to first recognize, if you will please, Richard Bowles.
Hi, pal.
Great to have you here. Please join us. Thank you. Richard Bowles has authored 41 editions of the world's most popular career book in the world ever written. What Color's Your Parachute has simply been amazing and touched every one of our lives. The public view about the potential for and value of career development, and thus NCDA, was dramatically advanced because of Richard Bowles' reach, commitment, and remarkable creativity. It's a pleasure to have you here, Richard. Francina Carter. NCDA has enjoyed a remarkably successful relationship with the National Institute of Corrections because of Francina's vision, style, and ability to advocate for successful reentry of offenders. NCDA would not have reached its present status or position without Francina's compassion, vision, and voice. And I want to say that again, her voice. It's a pleasure to have you here. Richard Nodell. One of the most popular product developers, presenters, and supporters of NCDA as an exhibitor, Richard's guidance and support has been critical to NCDA's conferences and professional development and its success along the way. His attention to the needs of corporate career development, coaching, and veterans was frequently ahead of its time. Worldwide, Richard has advocated for NCDA membership and have supported our growth in ways that cannot be quantified. It's a pleasure to have you here. Roger Lambert. Thank you, buddy. Many of Roger's visionary planning efforts helped lead to the creation of NCDA's Career Resource Store, a concept of forming NCDA's magazine, Career Developments, and the creation of NCDA's web magazine, Career Convergence. They were all his ideas. And many of the things you hear about going on in this present time are all because Roger had a vision far further than many of us could see. Roger's mentoring of future presidents and board members provided priceless value to NCDA, and it's a privilege to have you here with us today, Roger. Juliet Lester. That's fine. Thank you, Julie. Pleasure to have you. Thank you, dear. NCDA's primary government partner in providing labor market information, professional development, research, and coordinated projects originated from the creative and progressive thinking of Juliet between 1986 and 2000, where she had worked in the National Occupational Coordinating Committee. NCDA reached new heights by including more states and career specialists because of Juliet's significant leadership, support, and willingness to collaborate. Many of the products that lead our field today came out of the NOAC office because of the vision of Juliet Lester. It's a privilege to have you here. Video, please. We also want to tell a little bit of story if we can, and I appreciate your patience because you've just heard really about the history of NCDA in many ways, and you're talking to people who are the legends of our field, and I hope you identify with the hope and potential that they gave all of us to consider this. Because when you think about it, we have to frankly look backwards before we can move forward. And we welcome the opportunity to see if we can touch your soul, because we'll hear from people like ourselves who get up every day to make a difference in the world. So let's look backwards before we move forward. Our roots became our legacy. Honoring the dignity of the most vulnerable by eradicating poverty and improving living conditions through job placement, the National Vocational Guidance Association was established in 1913. Social activists like Meyer Broomfield, Jesse Davis, and Frank Levitt joined other pioneers to consolidate the vocational guidance movement, distinguish guidance as a discipline, and created the first professional association for counselors in the nation. Donald Super and Ken Hoyt joined 6 others to uniquely serve as NCDA presidents, eminent career award winners, and presidents of the American Counseling Association. Shaping national policy, programs, and publications, they and a growing number of career specialists moved our work from a sole focus on vocational guidance and job matching to a complementary emphasis on career development. NVGA became the National Career Development Association in 1985, and 3 executive directors elevated NCDA's mission significantly. History matters because it feeds our passion and inspires us to make a difference. After a remarkable 100 years of promises made and kept, our NCDA colleagues remind us of who we are and why we do our best work.
I love what I do because right now I'm working with a lot of international students and a lot of first-generation students, and I'm watching these folks get excited by the potential and opportunities they have out there. And through that we get the true depth of diversity where everyone is able to practice their skills and what they're passionate about to make this world different.
Today we encounter a unique set of characters and an enduring story of hope, social justice, and legacy. Our clients and students call on us to support their self-discovery, to maximize their natural abilities, and help them narrate a happy ending to their own story of growth and development.
Okay.
Take, for example, Rita's story. She considers her past to be, in a word, messy.
I've been a drug addict and an alcoholic for about 15 years. I had no goals, no direction. I didn't care about anything. I ended up in jail and discovered I was pregnant and wanted to change my life and make a better life for my daughter.
Now, thanks to Dan and his court-mandated career planning class, she went from drug addict to community college rock star.
The person that I was when I first took Dan's class just had no idea what I was going to do with each day or what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And the person I am now, I have a plan, I have a direction, and I have goals, and it feels good.
I realize how successful she has become. That feels awesome to feel like I've had a little part of that.
Rita plans on entering a 4-year college next fall. She will forever be grateful to those who helped her take those first steps out of the mess.
When you're coming in from the messy past, it can be really confusing on where you're going. So having the right guidance or someone to help direct you or lead you on your way, it's really important.
During summer breaks in high school, Hector worked long hours in the grape fields of the San Joaquin Valley in Central California.
Every time I'd come home, you always drive down the grapevine and you always just see all these grape fields, and every time I look at them, I was like, wow, it just always brings back memories of those long summer days.
His parents were immigrant farm laborers who encouraged him to get an education.
I didn't know anything about college, and I was nervous, and I didn't know what was going to happen.
His parents may have put him on his path, but his college counselor, Steve, moved him toward his dreams.
It's where the counselors step in and say, hey, these are the options, these are the sciences, what's the fit for you?
As a counselor, you see lives transformed, and you know you're affecting change in the world, and you can see it every day. It becomes real life. It's much more than just a job.
Steve helped Hector dream big, so big that this summer he earned a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree.
Hector M. Gonzalez, California.
He returned to his roots in the valley where he grew up to not only practice veterinary medicine, but to show others in the valley all that's possible.
Yeah, vino este amigo desde Colorado para entrevistarnos. It's just something that is, for myself, is most fulfilling, just to be able to appreciate that and to demonstrate it in that way by giving back to the community.
Yeah, just going through the motions.
Before Charles went to see Katie, a private career counselor, he was desperate and lost.
It happens when you're 35 and unemployed and don't know what to do with yourself.
Katie helped Charles construct the steps and design a plan to find the professional job of his dreams.
It was so exciting to have him say, I want to go through this process. Will you help me get to where I want to go?
Thanks to Katie, he's embarked on a career as a writer, putting him in tune with his creative strengths and love of words.
Being unemployed is incredibly lonely, and career counselors see those people every day
to an expert
and say, all right, well, today we're actually going to do something about it.
Every day we see the power of designing careers, finding a next job, and reimagining life's possibilities. NCDA helps each of us further develop ourselves and our skills. It connects us to new opportunities.
When I'm interfacing with a client who's going through a lot of growth, I need to be walking the talk. It's so much better if we're all going through an evolution, and so I live and breathe ongoing transformation for myself and with my clients.
As we embrace our next century, career counseling graduates like Sam will write NCDA's next chapter. Sam's story has Lori at its center. She changed Sam's life, and now Sam will do that for others.
She was the hope and the strength that I needed to really succeed in college the way I have, and I want to be that hope for other students.
As we gather in Boston once again to reflect and honor our roots, let's celebrate our role in creating hope, social justice, and legacy. Maybe look forward to keeping the promise that we will inspire and empower the achievement of career and life goals. Our second century begins now. As our Centennial Award winners walk off the stage, we just want to again thank you for pushing us forward. And we have an award for each of you and a personal copy of that as well. Thank you again for joining us. Are these in order? Nope. Julia, thank you very much, dear.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Pal.
Thanks.
Francine, thank you so much, dear. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Pal.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you very much. Pal. This all started with a lot from you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you again. Two of the counselors in the video are in the audience today. Katie Piotrowski, if you're there, would you please stand? And Dan Macy, would you please stand if you're here? Katie, thank you very much. Dan, thank you very much. This conference could not have been possible without the tremendous support of the Career Counselors Consortium Northeast and the Massachusetts Career Development Association. In particular, we'd like to thank Amy Mazer and Ed Colozzi for their support and those career development associations from the North Atlantic region for helping support this conference. The information on the video kind of tell a story, and hopefully you know a little bit more about our history. I think you can appreciate why we talk about social justice in our business, why we talk about legacy, and why we talk about hope. And that's the theme certainly of our conference. And you certainly see that also in the American Counseling Association, which was instrumental in certainly our history over time. We want to recognize those from our parent organization, ACA, and recognize their generous co-sponsorship of this conference. Please help me welcome ACA's newest president as of July 1st, Circe West Olatunji. Robert Smith, ACA President-elect, and a past NCDA President. Richard Yep, Executive Director, ACA. And David Kaplan, Chief Professional Officer. Last but not least, we want to honor our sponsors. These companies and organizations have graciously donated funds to make this event special and possible. Can I have a warm round of applause for Cooter Incorporated, who provides the Gala and Cyber Cafe sponsorship. Career Development Alliance for providing the tote bag sponsorship. Psychological Assessment Resources and CPP as silver sponsors. And the Association of Career Resource Professionals as bronze sponsors. Thank you again for your generous support and applause. Let's remind ourselves that we have people out there every day risking their capital to create new ideas, to invent things, to allow us to do our job better. So again, we thank you sponsors very much. I know enough about human behavior. You've been sitting about almost an hour. Would you all please just stand and get stretched for me? I appreciate that. I want to prepare you for a remarkable opportunity and a welcome remarkable colleague. Dr. Temple Grandin was born in Boston, Massachusetts. Temple's achievements are remarkable because she was an autistic child. At age 2, she had no speech and all signs of severe autism. Fortunately, her mother defied the advice of the doctors and kept her out of an institution. Many hours of speech therapy and intensive teaching enabled Temple to learn speech. As a teenager, life was hard with constant teasing. Mentoring by her high school science teacher and her aunt on her ranch in Arizona motivated Temple to study and pursue a career as a scientist and livestock equipment designer. Dr. Temple Grandin obtained her BA in Franklin Pierce College in 1970. In 1974, she was employed as a livestock editor of these Arizona Farmer Ranchmen and also worked for Coral Industries on equipment design. In 1975, she earned her MS in Animal Science at Arizona State University for her work on the behavior of cattle in different squeeze chutes. Dr. Grandin was awarded her PhD in Animal Science from the University of Illinois in 1989. Half of the cattle in the US and Canada are handled in equipment she would design for meat plants. Other professional activities include developing animal welfare guidelines for the meat industry and consulting with McDonald's, Wendy's International, Burger King, and other companies in animal welfare. She has published several hundred industry publications, book chapters, and technical reports on animal handling, plus 63 referee journal articles in addition to 10 books. She currently is a professor of animal sciences at Colorado State University, and I could not be prouder to say that, where she continues her research while teaching courses on livestock handling and facility design. Her book, Animals in Transition, was a New York Times bestseller. Other popular books authored by Dr. Grandin are Thinking in Pictures, Emergence Labeled Autistic, Animals Make Us Human, The Way I See, and her most recent book, The Autistic Brain. In 1910, the Time magazine honored her as one of the 100 most important people in the world. 2010. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you.
Well, it's really great to be here today. I'm going to talk about a whole lot of different things today. One of the things I want to get you thinking about is different kinds of thinking. And I want to get you thinking about just sort of different kinds of minds. You know, a little bit of some of these traits like bipolar, get a little more creative. People with autism, there's more techies. Half of Silicon Valley's got autism genetics. See, the thing is, a little bit of the trait gives some advantage. Too much of the trait, a disadvantage. And then you go and visit I visited the tech companies that have older employees where they have children. You've got lots of autistic kids. You see, these things are a continuum. Another thing is, the American Psychiatric Association just come out with a new version of the DSM-5, which stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. I don't know why it's called that. And they have broadened the definition of depression. They've broadened the definition of ADHD, so you get more kids in that. Autism, they've narrowed a bit. But you could end up with 30% of the students that you work with getting a DSM diagnosis. I think you're getting too much pathology, making normal sort of variation pathology, and I don't think that's a good idea at all. Now I want to get you thinking really hard. Little Stevie, when he was young, he was a weird loner who brought snakes to school. He turned them loose just for fun. He was teased and teased and teased and teased and teased, and what saved him was going to a new high school that had a local computer club. You see, you got to get the kid that's geeky in with the shared interests. What about little Albert? No speech until age 3. You know, how kind of drug zombie would they've made him into? But what happened to little Albert today? You see, what I'm seeing is, you know, one geeky kind of kid goes to Silicon Valley, another geeky kind of kid gets some other good job, and then another one sort of getting kind of a handicap mentality. I'm getting worried about people becoming their label. You know, kids with autism get fixated on things. I got fixated on cattle chutes. I was able to turn that into a career. See, one of the problems you got is these things are continuums. And in the milder forms, they can give some advantages. More severe forms, yeah, you've definitely got some serious problems. The thing is, these diagnostic labels are not precise. They are behavioral profiles. They're half based in science and half based in doctors fighting around conference room tables in hotels like this. You know, they rent those little meeting rooms, and they have all these different little committees, and they sit around and bicker at a table. That's half of it. I want to show you over the years, the autistic diagnosis has changed a lot. And it's been broadened over the years. Now, nobody's changing the diagnosis for tuberculosis. You know, you either got TB or you don't have it. This just shows you on these slides how it's changed. Now, in 2013, they've taken out the Asperger's. They're going to make everything autism. You know, whether or not you have to have speech delay, that's kind of muddied up. You know, it keeps changing. Some of this increase in autism is just increased detection. I can think of kids I went to school with that were definitely diagnosed autistic. I can think of heads of big Silicon Valley companies, and I won't mention them by name, but you look them up on the internet and you go find their interviews like on 60 Minutes, and they're as Asperger's as they can be. Just look it up, you know, your favorite big name companies, just look it up. Now, there's a lot of genetics here, but the genetics is complicated. Little tiny things keep changing. Oh, we don't know much about genetics. When they originally decoded the genome, they only decoded the coding DNA. That was 2% of the genome. What's the other half of the genome? It's the operating system, the regulatory DNA. That was just decoded in 2012. Yeah, we used to call it junk DNA back in the 1980s. Well, it's not junk DNA. And that's really what the genome looks like when it's all folded up and the coding DNA goes against the non-coding DNA in some kind of mathematical pattern that we don't understand. You're going to need all those STEM majors to figure that out. And that's what we're going to be doing, need to be doing. Now, the thing is, you need to be looking at personality sort of more like a music mixing board. You know, there's gray areas. You know, you're either good at math, bad at math, you know, good at art. You know, I noticed some people here working with the prisons. You got a lot of the art kind of minds there. You know, unfortunately, those guys just sort of went in the bad direction. Now, I design livestock facilities. Now, one of the things you got to do when you're working with the kids that are just kind of different, let's just call them just kind of different, because the mild versions of all those DSM labels are just kind of different. You know, the eccentric kids. And why did they do better back in the 50s than they did now? Well, back in the 50s, they pounded in social rules. You weren't allowed to be a dirty slob. There's a scene in the HBO movie about me where my boss slams down the deodorant and says, "You stink, use it." That actually happened. I think it's fine to be eccentric. You can be eccentric, but you just cannot be a slob. Another thing we need to do is short-circuit the conventional interview process. You see, the way I sold jobs was showing off my portfolio. Well, how did a guy like Snowden manage to get the job he got? High school dropout? Well, he must have had a really good portfolio on his laptop, because that's the way he got the job. You see, a lot of tech jobs, it's showing off what you can do, because when you're weird, you're not going to impress people with your social skills, you're going to impress them with showing your work. And I'd show people pictures of my designs, and then when they looked at my designs, they go, "Wow, you did that?" I showed my portfolio, and I tell people, put your portfolio on your phone. Okay, if you're a mathematician, it could be programming you've done, it could be, or if you're an English major, it could be things you've written. You know, you've got to show your work. Because what I learned is I had to sell my work, not myself. Another thing we got to do, kids have got to learn job skills. I'm seeing too many kids who graduate in college and they don't know about getting there on time. You got to do what the boss tells you to do, just learning job skills. By the time I got out of college, I had done lots and lots and lots of job skills. Now, I used to joke around that I had a big internet line in my head for visual thinking. Turns out that I do have a big internet line in my head for visual thinking. Well, I'll show you later some brain scans to show that my math department got trashed. And one of the things I'm worried about with all this STEM emphasis is us visual thinkers getting screened out. But let me tell you, the STEM projects need us visual thinkers. And I'll show you why. Well, there's one of my drawings. Good, and we've got a pretty good projector today that's showing that. And well, I remember going to the very first agricultural engineering meeting, and I showed off my drawings, and they go, wow, you did that? Then maybe I was somebody worth talking to. You know, a lot of people that don't interview well, they got to show the work. Another thing I figured out very early on is you never know where you're going to meet somebody that can open the door. So I always had my notebook with me that had my portfolio. Now, of course, you could put it on your phone. You might meet somebody at the bus stop, at the supermarket, on a plane. And I sometimes sold jobs at big conventions just by walking up to people and showing them my portfolio. I got really good at reading name tags at the American Meat Institute Congress in Chicago. And also managed not to get kicked off the floor at the McCormick place for being a non-exhibiting supplier and selling stuff on the floor. Oh, you got to be discreet. You know, you got to, just figure out how to do stuff, how to get stuff done. Well, right there, where it's bright blue, that's basically full of water, and my math department is just trashed out. That's left parietal area. You know, there are some things I cannot do, and you get into the whole nature-nurture controversy. Well, I'm not going to be a mathematician. I'm going to show you later on problems with my speech circuit. Well, with a lot of work, I was able to develop that. But my math department's pretty well wrecked. Because back in 1968, when I was in college, I wanted to learn how to program computers. I was really turned on by that. This is the 1968 IBM Teletype computer terminal, the state-of-the-art. Bill Gates and I had access to this exact same computer. Well, I couldn't program it. I just couldn't do it. I wanted to, but I couldn't do it. It's like, sort of like, circuit's sort of like not there. This is a really important slide. You get kids that are kind of different. First of all, I want to get you away from even thinking about DSM labels. Let's just say the kids are kind of just quirky and different. And I'm a photorealistic visual thinker. And kids that end up with labels or they're having problems at school, they often have uneven skills. This is what I am. I'm very, very good at visual things. I got good writing skills, good visual thinking skills, terrible math skills. Once I got past elementary school math, it was kind of a disaster. And you're going to find some kids that can't do algebra, they need to jump to geometry and trig. And they need to be allowed to do that. Algebra is not the prerequisite for geometry. Geometry was invented before algebra. That much I do know about it. Now, in my new book, The Autistic Brain, I've actually got scientific studies that show that what's on this slide really is evidence-based. I know everybody's into evidence-based today. This stuff is evidence-based. And I've got the studies in my Autistic Brain book. I've also got a whole chapter on employment with a big, long list of jobs for the different kinds of thinkers. Okay, what would be good jobs for my kind of brain? What I do is industrial design. You see, I needed an industrial designer to work with the engineers. Because Steve Jobs was an artist. He wasn't an engineer, he was an artist. And the engineers had to make the inside of the phone work. See, that's where you need the two different kinds of minds working together. Now, your STEM guys, they're going to be the pattern thinkers, the spatial visualizers. And these kids often have trouble with reading. That's where they tend to be weak. And the verbal guys, these are the guys that love history, a lot of the humanities majors. And I think, I've been traveling around to a lot of colleges, and I've run into some very disturbing stuff. I went to one state that I think I'll leave the name of the state out, but I found out that their governor was thinking about making the state university charge more tuition for humanities majors than for STEM majors. In other words, if they took a STEM major, they have lower tuition, in-state and out-of-state, both. That's... Now, the other thing we got to do in the humanities is we got to make things more relevant. I'm getting concerned, people getting advanced degrees in extremely narrow humanities subjects with all kinds of crazy jargon that nobody understands outside that field. Okay, you want to major in history? Well, you better be a really good writer. Or you want to major in some other specialized humanities subject? You better come out a really good writer that can write really well without jargon, come out really good speaking skills, so that when you get out in the job market, I got a place for you. Because there's plenty of jobs out there for people that can just speak and write and write well. And I'm finding a lot of people, you know, their writing's not that good. You know, the students I've had in my class, their writing's not that good. I have a message service, and they hire operators there that can't sound out simple names phonetically. I don't know what they're learning in school, but they can't sound out a name like Montfort Lamb. Montfort, M-O-N-F-O-R-T, Montfort. That's phonetic. And then you've got people that are auditory thinkers. I had a dyslexic student. She was totally auditory. She learned hearing. Hearing was the way that she learned. She was very, you know, good at all kinds of verbal things. And you can have mixtures. But when you get the kids that get the labels, the kids that are in the counseling office because they got problems, usually they often have these uneven skills. And we got to find out what they're good at. Okay, it was discussed on how do you find their passion. I ask them, what are your favorite classes in school? I ask them what they really like to do. What are they good at doing? You know, maybe you could, you know, I did a lot of tutoring in algebra, which is hopeless, and I never had a chance to take geometry. And I'm getting worried now that I'd be totally shut out of higher education. You know, I'd probably be painting signs for the carnival. You know what? And I did that. I painted signs for the carnival. Yeah, things like the Himalayan ice monster that was supposedly found in the frozen Himalayas, and it was a wax thing in a freezer chest full of ice. I mean, really, really stupid, but I painted a sign for that. Okay, this is just some scientific evidence that shows that these two kinds of thinkers actually do exist. The object visual thinker, who thinks in photorealistic pictures like me, and then the more mathematical visual spatial thinker. Just to show you, two ways to do the algebra: the verbal way and the visual spatial way. This is the mind of the pattern thinker. This is not my mind. I couldn't do this. This praying mantis is made out of a single sheet of folded paper. Extreme origami. What you see in the background is the folding pattern. Here are some beautiful origami stars that some kids gave me at a meeting, and a dragon picture, a folded dragon I got off the internet. There's another one of my drawings, because I always like to show off my portfolio. And this is some artwork that a lady with autism did. Now the thing that people have got to learn is they got to learn how to take their thing they're good at and make it into stuff that people want. Okay, people will buy this picture. But you know what she was doing before she did this picture? Electric blanket controls. It's like nobody's interested in that. You've got to learn how to do tasks that other people want. So you've got to expand it out. And there's a gorgeous, another gorgeous, came from a guy with autism that liked to rip up paper, and his mom showed him how to make artwork out of it, and he's now showing professionally. Okay, what is that mess right there? Let's look at that for just a minute. That is the remains of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. And I always like to read about these things, so I'm like, you know, I go and I buy like 4 papers and all the magazines. I'm reading them on the plane. I had to read a lot of stuff before I found out why this happened. When I found out why it happened, I couldn't believe it, because a visual thinker like me would not make this mistake. I can't design a nuclear reactor, but someone like me is going to be the person laying out the plant. Somebody's got to lay out the plant, draw the basic concrete work, stuff like that. And the reason why it burned up is they put their super important emergency generators that run the emergency cooling equipment in a non-waterproof basement. And it was located next to the sea. It's like diesels don't run underwater. The electric panels that run the pumps do not work underwater. That is why 4 nuclear reactors melted down and had breach of containment. Yes, STEM people out there, you need me. You need me. And I'm worried about now that I'm going to be screened out. How did I get through college? Because back in the 60s, finite math was the required math class, not algebra. And finite math is probability, matrices, and statistics. You know, how about let a kid take geometry? I'm finding a lot of kids that flunk algebra, but they can do geometry just fine. Let them take geometry. I'm not suggesting totally getting out of math. But I think this is getting kind of rigid just on the algebra thing, because you need people like me so that accidents like Fukushima don't happen. I'm very concerned about hackers bringing down the power grid. You see, the problem is I can visualize ways that they can break things. And I can also visualize ways to fix it with really simple non-electronic controls. It gets too hot or it spins too fast, it shuts down. But hackers getting in and hacking into stuff like programmable logic controllers that run equipment at power plants. Very, very worried about stuff like that. Okay, and no. And of course, NSA is out there hiring right now, lots of jobs. Let's talk about where the hot jobs are. The hottest job right now in defense contracting is computer science mixed with electrical engineering. You got that combo, you will get hired. NSA is hiring hackers, data miners, and some people say, well, these kids play video games and then they get these great jobs. That's not true. What I'm finding is if you have 10 kids addicted to video games, only one becomes a programmer. A lot of the others are ending up on Social Security with various labels. No, I'm serious. And they're not getting that job with NSA. Well, I think maybe we ought to ship Snowden a copy of that Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal, you know, where you're stuck in the airport. You know, let's send them a few DVDs of that. Okay, another place where the jobs are hot is the medical field, because you got all us oldies here, going to need all kinds of stuff in the medical field. The other thing I'm saying is where we really need to have jobs is skilled trades. I've been doing a lot of talks at community colleges, and there's a lot of things that are 2-year degree. Auto mechanic, diesel mechanic, certified welder, oil field jobs, they're screaming. The industry's screaming out there for the skilled trades. You know, some of the most fun stuff I ever had was supervising my construction projects. Oh, it was fun. Best time I ever had sitting around the job trailer talking about how we're going to build stuff. You know, Denver Airport right now, they're building a new hotel, and I always have to go over to this big window and sidewalk superintend the job, and I'm just salivating over the equipment they got. Standalone pedestal concrete pumps. Oh man, are they cool? They are so cool. When I think about the stuff we had to use, we were building dip vats. Now, how did visual thinking help me in my work with designing cattle handling equipment? Well, because I noticed visual detail. Okay, this is a chute going into a veterinary facility, and the cattle wouldn't go in because a flag was waving. And the thing is, most people didn't see it. Or there's a chain hanging down. There's a shadow. There's a reflection. They're afraid of all these little things. And people always ask me, are the cattle afraid of getting slaughtered? No, they're more afraid of the distractions. And I find to get rid of those distractions, then they go in. It's, I'm not going to say it's stress-free. Veterinary chute's not stress-free either. No. Okay, animals see details. How many people noticed that that animal was locked onto that sunbeam? Raise your hand if you saw that. Most people don't see it. You see, when I was younger, I didn't know other people didn't think in pictures. It's obvious to me that that animal's locked onto that sunbeam. But most people don't see it. The most obvious is the least obvious. Animals are all into sensory world. They're sensory. You know, there's some evidence in human beings. Visual thinking is covered up by language, because when you get a certain type of Alzheimer's, it wrecks your language center, and art comes out. And Van Gogh didn't realize he was painting mathematics into his paintings. When I found out this little piece of research, I thought that's like super interesting. Because I want to get you thinking about there's different kinds of minds out there. And it's been very interesting to me to learn how my mind is different from other people's minds. Okay, my kind of thinking is bottom up. I form concepts with specific examples rather than general theories. And I think we need more bottom-up thinking in government. Because one of the problems is everything's getting too abstract. You've got people going into Washington, D.C., never done any hands-on stuff. They aren't doing anything with the practical world. You know, everything I've learned is specific examples. Put it in file folders. Okay, my thinking's associative. But associative thinking is also real creative kinds of thinking. I'm going to show you how associative thinking works. There's the terminal of United Airlines in Chicago, and I don't start getting pictures in my mind. I can start going in a glass structure category, just like a search engine. My mind works like Google for images. They come up as specific pictures. Or the airport category. Or if I say to you, think about a church steeple. About 20 years ago, I was shocked to find out that most people got this kind of vague, generalized one. I only see specific ones. You see, I'm not a top-down thinker. So I can go in the glass structure category and associate glass structures. And then when I get to our greenhouse at Colorado State University, I'm now seeing the animal science building that's being remodeled, and they've gutted the inside. And I was amazed at how much rebar they put in the front steps when they were tearing that out. So how did I get from greenhouse to that? Well, you see, I'm bringing up pictures. That building's right next to the greenhouse. Or how about the airport category? Here's all the different airports, pictures of them. LaGuardia Airport, interesting old hangar full of weird junk. I'd love to go exploring in there. And when I asked a professor of physics about church steeples, he got motion patterns of people singing and praying. And go, wow, that's not my mind. Cattle make categories. Like a man on a horse, they may have learned the man on the horse is safe, and people on the ground are new and scary. So the first time they see people on the ground, they're freaking out because it's something new that they haven't seen before. Now I find that lots of times, most people have a hard time categorizing equipment problems. The normal mind tends to overgeneralize things. But the problem is you can't just shove everything into the same theory. I got something wrong with equipment. Is it a people training issue? Or is it a design problem? You know, and then I remember all the stuff with the British Petroleum. Oh, they did a great job on preventing all the little slips and falls and things like that. And if you go visit their oil rig, you better have a lid on your coffee cup because we're going to write you up for safety violation. And they were busy congratulating themselves on this, and the rig blew up because they forgot about process safety. It's not smart to try to finish your well off and you're missing some parts that it needs to have. It's not a smart thing to do, and that's what they did. That's not the only sloppy thing they did. Now here's a bunch of eccentrics. You know, some of these would probably be labeled Asperger's or some other, you know, label. The happy geeks that put the Mars rover on Mars. You got the Mohawk guy, he was the head of the project. You got the Elvis guy, you got the old hippie there. They're the lucky ones. But I'm seeing too many kids, they're a little kind of weird, this is a little weird and quirky. They get a label, and I think we're going to get more and more of this, and they're not getting these cool jobs. And this is what makes me crazy, because I go out in the meat plant, or maybe I go to a tech conference, and I've done quite a few tech conferences, and where's the gray hair Asperger guy that's undiagnosed? He's got a great job. You know, or he's running the maintenance shop at a major meatpacking plant. He's doing metal fabrication, he's doing equipment design, managed to get a great job. Had the work skills pounded in, learned how to be on time. Well, the thing is, they did a brain scan on me, and I found that things were more interesting to look at than pictures of people. But we need people interested in things. Tesla, who invented the power plant, would be labeled autistic today. You know, I think we do like to have power plants. I mean, I think lights on in the hotel are nice. Now, what do you have to do to help some of these kids that are different to succeed? We got to stretch them. They can get in a rut. You can't shove sudden surprises at them, but you got to stretch them. Another thing I tell every student, you got to try on jobs. You know, let's go intern with a vet and find out if a vet's what you want to be. You want to do some other job, you want to teach kindergarten kids, we'll go visit a classroom and find out that's what you want to be. Try on jobs. And the good teachers, certain teachers that can be mentors, can turn a kid around. I had a great science teacher, and I would have gone nowhere without my science teacher. Oh, and you've also got to learn the work skills. Some of these kids today, 12 years old, if there was a paper route around, I'd put them on a paper route. And I know those are gone now, but let's figure out other things they could do, like walk dogs to people, or you know, something they got to do as a job. And when I was in college, I had to rent a house, and I did an internship at a research lab. Yeah, and I also did paint signs for the carnival. You know, kids today are doing too much solitary stuff. They don't get together and just make, like, group of 4 kids decide what they're going to do. It's called work groups when you grow up. It's the same thing. 4 people have got to get together, decide what you're going to do. Now, I can't emphasize enough building up the kids' area of strength. Okay, for people that are working with the prisons, let me tell you, it's art stuff. They need to be taking CAD drafting. They need to be taking all kinds of, design stuff. Now, I noticed an interesting thing with CAD drafting. When the meat industry went from drawing by a hand to the computers, the old people switched over fine. But I started seeing weird stuff happening with young guys that had never built anything with their hands, and they had never drawn by hand, making strange mistakes on drawings, like not having the center of the circle in the center of the circle. And they think now in virtual education that we can just get rid of all the labs, get rid of all the hands-on stuff. Now, I think there's things we can do to reduce expense in labs, but we still have to do hands-on stuff. You got to touch in order to understand. Now, 3D printers are going to be able to help with that, because you can print out your thing and touch. But if you don't touch it, you don't see right. And I found these mistakes in drawings from every single major meat company. And they were perceptual mistakes. Also, I'm seeing sad situations in schools where you might have a little 3rd grader and he's not allowed to advance ahead in math. Let him advance ahead in math. There's great online things there. I'm sure you guys already know about that stuff. There's one of my designs in SketchUp. There's fabulous free stuff online kids can do. Things like free drawing programs and all kinds of science things online that are really cool. Well, in high school, I was learning work skills, so I didn't do much studying in high school. But boy, I learned how to work. Like I remodeled a ski tow house and made it really nice. Already talked about my great science teacher. Let's tap into retirees, because what you're trying to do is get the spark turned on. And I'm getting concerned that some of these kids are just going to, they're kids that ought to be out there doing great things. They're becoming addicts to video games, and they're ending up on Social Security playing video games. I go around to autism meetings, and you see, and the problem you got with autism is, at one end of the spectrum, you got half of Silicon Valley, but they're not diagnosed. All your STEM guys, where are all your STEM guys? They can't get enough people in that. So they want to get people from other countries. Where are they here? Well, they're playing video games, and they're not learning programming. I can tell you that right now. Because I go to these meetings, I know what's going on. And they're going nowhere. We need to be introducing that stuff young, and when they're in the 3rd grade, don't make them do baby math. Let them do college math in the 3rd grade classroom if they can do it. Don't hold them back. But you know what? They'll need special ed and reading. That tends to be the pattern. I think one of the worst things the schools did, the high schools did, was taking out the hands-on classes. One of the absolute worst things they did. And one of the reasons this is bad is these classes teach a resourcefulness. They teach a figuring things out. I'm finding a lot of people today, they have a harder time just figuring things out. Hands-on problem solving. I know it's expensive to have auto shop. I was just talking with a great lady at lunch that in their school they had small engine repair. That's not expensive to do. Let's figure out ways to, let's link up with the local car dealer. Come on, let's get creative on these things. The funding is all drying up. It's just terrible. Makes me absolutely want to throw up when I read in the newspaper that some stupid CEO, when he retired, got $45 million. And what's he going to do with that $45 million? He ought to put it into something decent. And we talk about these big amounts of money in government budgets. What's $1 billion? What's $1 billion? Well, $5 billion will build Logan Airport. Okay, and I'm talking about if it was maybe next to the water here, it won't, but our airport that's on level ground out in the country, our airport, our new Denver airport, is $5 billion. And if we started thinking about these big amounts of money in terms of real stuff, maybe we'd be not so vague about things. I'm really concerned about people getting too vague. Here's the things that saved me when I was in high school. Absolutely, totally saved me. We need people in this country that can do real stuff. We need programmers. We need business people. We need people that can write really well. I'm just seeing too many quirky kids kind of going nowhere. Now, you guys are in the position to help mentor these kids. Help get them involved with stuff. Get them into good jobs. Get them into good internships. The thing I learned when you're kind of different is you sell your work and not yourself. Every job I ever sold was through my portfolio. When I started writing for the Farmer and Ranchman magazine, one little project at a time, I built up a reputation for writing good articles. The other thing is, you can't be vague with these kind of employees. You can't say, we'll just develop new software. That's too vague. No. Okay, if you work for NSA, okay, your job, here is the code to get into the server farm, now called the data center. For Facebook, you are to troll through certain keywords that remain classified and go through all the Facebook accounts and look for threats. And we'll explain to you what threats are, and that's classified. You know, all right, that's specific. You don't just say troll for threats. You know, and when mistakes are made and things like that, they need to, don't be vague. Okay, let's say it's a sales job, and the person's a bit too loud and standing too close to customers. Don't just tell them you're too aggressive with customers. Explain to them to stand 2 feet away and watch how Joni does it. Watch how Joni does it. She does it perfect. Copy how she works with customers. Okay, museum tour guide. This is a job I recommend for teenagers that, you know, kind of quirky and different. Demonstrate the correct distance. I'm seeing kids that don't know how to shake hands because they just weren't taught how to say please and thank you. You know, it's sort of like coaching an actor in a play. That's how you have to do it. All right, another thing, let's talk about where you might need accommodations. There are some accommodations some of these kids are going to have. For me, math tutoring and more math tutoring and more math tutoring. I had to have that. Just to get through the finite math, I had to have that. Some kids are going to need a little extra time. But I get worried about kids getting a handicap mentality. We need to be looking at accommodations that enable. You put a wheelchair ramp in a building, that enables somebody in a wheelchair to use that building. I'm all for that. But we can sort of get to where they're thinking too much about what they cannot do rather than what they can do. Now, one area, and this is an area where we need to be doing a lot of research, are sensory problems. And you can get these sensory problems with dyslexia, and don't get hung up on these labels. They're not precise. Look at the kid, not the label. I can't emphasize that enough. And sensory problems like noise sensitivity, visual sensitivity problems. Some individuals can't tolerate fluorescent lights because they can see the flicker. I had a dyslexic student that had this problem. She absolutely had to get away from fluorescent lights. I can't wait until fluorescent lights die a natural death and things go over to LED lights. Because this problem probably affects 5% of the total population. Oppositional defiant, that's actually a DSM diagnosis. That's what a lot of your prisoners are going to be. Conduct disorder, oppositional defiant. You know, the other thing I get worried about is that putting so many of these kids on so many meds that they just can't think straight. Now, I take antidepressants, a low dose of antidepressants that's controlled my panic attacks. Okay, that was medication that enabled. Also stopped the headaches and the colitis attacks. But I'm seeing kids put on so many different medications that they're not going to have any thinking. Okay, auditory processing problems. I have problems even now hearing hard consonants. You know, if you said rat, cat, or bat, I have to do it by context. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about a pet bat, probably. Well, I had a chance to do some really, really interesting high-tech brain scanning. This was really fun, you know. Latest scanner comes out, paid for by the Defense Department in order to diagnose head injuries in veterans. And I got a chance to look at how my speak what you hear circuit, it's like a little tiny shrimp compared to the normal one. And that's a normal speak what you see circuit. And that's mine. And where did all those branches go? They ended up going all over the brain. So I kind of got a word-indexed visual search engine. And then I got water in my math department. You get into the whole argument, you got into the whole argument about nature versus nurture. Now, what ended up happening is on the part of this, normally the circuit just goes from the visual cortex to the language and the motor area. And it doesn't go all over the whole brain. But what happened is I had reduced bandwidth, you know, for getting speech out. I had less fibers, but I still had fibers, so I could grow that circuit. And people say to me, well, how'd you get good public speaking? Well, the first time I ever did public speaking, I panicked and I walked out. That was something that, yeah, with the work, yep, I could do that. Being an algebra specialist, I just don't think that's going to happen. And where you tend to get the innate differences are in the extremes. extreme areas of ability, like a brilliant mathematician, certain extreme art things, and areas of disability. Like there's some individuals with autism that are not going to learn how to talk, for example. In the middle, things are a lot more plastic. You're going to be dealing with a lot of students where they just got to figure out what do they like to do. And we got to get kids out and expose them to interesting things. As I say, talk to the people or the kids addicted to video games, they need to learn that oil rigs have joysticks too. I think they're more interesting than video games are. And there's a lot of jobs there, tons and tons of jobs, Colorado School of Mines. Another problem kids that are different can have is attention shifting slowness. Just takes them a little longer, shift back and forth between two different things. Now, there are some students that when they go to read, the print jiggles on the page. And I teach a livestock handling class, and my students have to do a drawing in that class. And I find some students cannot draw. If I ask them to draw a circle, they draw, this is what they draw for a circle. Instead of just going like that, they're drawing scribbles. And then I ask them some screening questions. When you read, do you ever see the print jiggle on the page? Yes. When you're driving at night, do you hate it? Do escalators bother you? And do fluorescent lights bother you? And there's a very, very simple thing you can do to help this. Something that's so simple, and I'm finding 1 out of 50 students in my class has this problem. Try printing your books on different pastel papers. Try different colored pastel backgrounds in the computer. Try pale pink glasses, pale lavender glasses, pale blue glasses. Experiment with pale tinted lenses. I've helped some students to not flunk out of college because of doing this. Now, this doesn't explain all learning problems. It doesn't explain all dyslexia. This is a subgroup. But it's a very, very simple thing. It's very treatable. Well, there's my head. And what you see right there is the connectome. You're saying there's a space in there, and I hope there's some gray matter there. But you see, your brain's about half of it's white matter. White matter is what connects up all the different parts of the brain. And that's the thing that really grows differently. There's a connectome without the head. Also found out my fear center was bigger, way, way bigger than normal. I know a lot of visual thinkers. Us visual thinkers tend to be panic monsters. And why are all these visual thinkers? They end up getting in prisons because they're getting into drugs and getting addicted to them. And I know a lot of people where a little dab of Prozac in the morning is keeping them out of the gutter because it stops the anxiety. You see, meds used right can be really, really great. Here are some accommodations at work that some individuals need. No fluorescent lights, quiet place to work. Some people got to have some breaks where they can calm down. The other thing is no sudden surprises of change in work routine. Like, for example, at CSU, we had to move our offices. Well, I had 6 months of warning we were going to move offices. So I started gradually de-junking. They didn't just come in and say, oh, next 2 days from now, we're going to tear down the building. You got to move out. Well, I managed to take 3 industrial garbage cans full of stuff out of my office. And I can't tolerate scratchy clothes. And I talked to a retired NASA space scientist. In fact, a couple of retired NASA space scientists, and they had a grandson with autism. And they said half the people at NASA probably had autism. You see, it's a continuum. Why don't you look up those old NASA videos there, the mission control and all that stuff like that, the guy with the vest and all those things. You see, those are your STEM guys. What's happening to a lot of these STEM guys is they're getting a label and then they're not becoming STEM guys. That's a big problem. Well, I think maybe I'm going to just end here. Communities need to work together. We need to be getting creative in how can we work with the local auto dealership? How can we work with different local resources? The community colleges are starting to do a lot of this kind of stuff. And the community colleges where I've seen a lot of kids that are just kind of quirky and different. And a lot of people helped me. I had a lot of great teachers along the way. My elementary school teachers, really good high school. I went away to special boarding school. And they kind of knew where to let me off the hook and where not to. One thing they would not let me do is become a recluse in my room. That they would not allow. But they did feel it was okay for me to learn lots of work skills, maybe before I started, doing very much studying. But we got to start, I hate this expression, think outside the box. But we got to start thinking really, really creative, thinking more bottom up. Think about specific examples of certain students you worked with or something really worked, then putting those into categories. Well, it was super great to be here, and I want to thank everybody for coming. And
Is Melanie going to say thank you? Where's Melanie? Where's Melanie? Melanie's supposed to be here. Where's she?
Questions?
Yes.
We have a little time for questions.
Do you want to
questions?
get to your screens, right?
And I'll repeat the question. You just have to yell it kind of loud.
So you can go without them. Okay.
Don't have any questions. I can't believe it. No questions at all? Maybe I need to pick somebody. Oh, right over there? Okay. Well, in other words, you're talking about the student that has got some talent, let's say art talent, for example, or programming, mathematical talent, and he just says, stay where I am. Now, are you counseling this client at college? Where is this client?
Well, I'm in a college environment, I'm sure.
You're in a college environment. And he says, well, just stay where I'm at. Well, obviously, he's in college and he's studying something. See, this is where you got to think more specific. I want to learn more about him. What's he majoring in? I would ask him. He has to be majoring in something. Oh, a child, okay. Well, I'm thinking with a child. Well, my ability in art was always encouraged. Now, I had a tendency to just draw constant horse heads and nothing else. And my mother encouraged me to draw other things. And what needs to be done with this kid is you got to stretch him. What is the talent? Filmmaking? Okay, one of the ways to get that better would be to set up something where maybe have him make a film and then pay him, give him a film assignment, pay him a little bit, but he's going to have to do a film assignment because when you grow up and you get to work, you're going to have to do a film assignment. Because I've heard sad stories where a guy would get through a prestigious art school, and then when he got out to a job, he didn't want to make his employer stupid bird videos. Well, what he needs to do is make the very best stupid bird videos, put them in his portfolio so he can get a better job. You know, that's what he needs to be doing. Okay, right here.
Thanks for being here, by the way. But I just wanted to say that the challenge I have with someone is that they want to do something different, but you give suggestions and they shoot down every suggestion because they're afraid do anything out of their routine.
Okay, so you got someone that comes in kind of a little bit depressed probably, and just in a routine. Okay, first of all, he did come to your office. So he's...
Actually, I'm describing my daughter.
Okay, well, how old is your daughter?
20 years old and Asperger's.
20-year-old Asperger's. Well, maybe there's a point where she's going to have to start pulling her weight. Is she working?
Not at the moment. She was a couple of years ago. And then she went abroad for a year and she picked up the language. She had no...
So she's got great language. She's really good at learning foreign languages. Okay, so let's look at the skills. Okay. Great writer, good at foreign languages. Okay, so she could do a job that involved writing or foreign languages. And there's a point where she's going to have to start supporting herself. You know, she can't say... You know, if you ever, well, laying out the household finances, say, look, this is what I pay for the car loan, house mortgage, the power bill, the phone bill, the water bill, and you need to start, you know, you're grown up now, another year to be grown up, you're going to need to start pulling your weight here. Maybe that'd be the way to You know, we got to stretch these kids. I'm seeing sometimes they're getting, you know, coddled a bit too much. You know, you need to kind of like figure out, you got a lot of contacts and networking, figure out something for a job and you kind of just say you're going to do this. But you give her a choice. When I was 15, well, I had the chance to go to my aunt's ranch and I was afraid to go. Mother gave me a choice. I could go for 2 weeks or I could go all summer. But not going. Or you say to the kid, you got a choice. You can play the video game for an hour when you get home from school, or you can play it for an hour after you do your homework. Yeah, it's only going to be for an hour a day we're going to do the video game. In other words, sometimes give them a choice, so they can't say no. They're going to have to have the choice. One more question? All right, right here.
I'm working with a higher functioning student that's an auto mechanic. 3.8 GPA. We're working on his social skills for that interview that he's going in.
For an auto mechanic? I don't think an auto mechanic needs to have an interview. Just put him in the shop and see if he can do it. Why don't you make a portfolio of his work, of some really specialized car things that he's fixed, and put it on his phone? What part of auto mechanics is he good at? Transmissions? Why don't you show before and after pictures of a wrecked transmission that he fixed, showing it in various stages of repair. And when he goes into the interview, he shows, here's a transmission mess I started with. Here I cleaned the parts, I replaced this, and then may have like 6 or 7 pictures in it showing step by step beautiful transmission repair. You got to sell the work. He's an auto mechanic after all. And now he's got to have enough social skills so he does not throw things at work. He cannot do tantrums at work. You know, there's some behavior that's not tolerated at work. And I had that slide in there, it's okay for geeks to cry. When they shut down the space shuttle, they were crying on 60 Minutes. Sometimes it's hard to control emotion. It's okay to change anger to crying. It's okay to cry in the auto shop, but you can't throw wrenches there. And when I got horseback riding taken away for 2 weeks after getting in a fight in the cafeteria, and I switched to crying. So you can't do. Well, I'm going to have to go, and I'll be outside here for a little while, and I got a lot more information in my book, The Autistic Brain. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Temple Grandin. Talk about inspiring and empowering. Very much. I'm Melanie Reinersman, and I'm happy to be announcing the annual Career Convergence Award. Since the Web Magazine's debut in 2003, over 700 authors have contributed their time and talent for the benefit of the field of career development. This award shows the appreciation of NCDA, its members, and the thousands of Career Convergence readers. This year's award goes to 3 authors of an article on the topic of disabilities: Abiola Diplu, Jessica Snitecki, and Marvin Lavin. For their article, Career Development Keys to Post-School Transition Success for Students with ADHD. Our apologies from Marvin, who could not be here today. But I do want to, again, congratulate all 3 winners, and thanks to all the volunteers who produce Career Convergence each month. I ask if there are any associate editors and field editors here today. Please stand so we can show our appreciation for your work each month, each year on producing the Web Magazine. Sue Aiken, Sarah Bacchus-Diaz, Abiola Diplu, Emats Yanaharis, Brian Lubick, Marilyn Mays, Patrick Lenahan, Deanna Allen, Nancy Miller, Vera Chapman, Willa Smith, and Shelley Trent. Thank you to all the volunteers.
Good afternoon and happy birthday. I have to say, for 100, you guys look really good. Earlier today at the annual membership meeting, introductions. My name's Lisa Severy and I have the privilege of being your president-elect, so I'll be president starting in October and I'm very excited about that. Thank you. Earlier today at our annual membership meeting, a vote was taken to narrow down our slate in the offices that had more than 2 candidates running. So those 2 positions included the secretary position and the new trustee for higher education, career counselors, and specialists. So I wanted to let you know that the 2 candidates that will be running for secretary are Constance Pritchard and Ellen Weaver-Paquette. And our 2 candidates for the trustee for higher education, career counselors, and specialists will be Nancy Richmond and Paul Timmons. Last year, if you'll remember, as part of our bylaws revision, a provision was approved to allow early voting to start today. So you don't have to wait till January. We'll start in the morning. We urge everyone in attendance to go online to www.ncda.org, which hopefully you're all very familiar with, to vote for your favorite candidate. All of the candidates will be at the NCDA bookstore in the exhibit hall during the welcome reception this evening, so you can take some time to stop by and meet them. You may have noticed that during this conference that we are a sellout for the first time in NCDA history, which is really a tribute to all of you who are in this room. Yay! That's worth applause, absolutely. Of course, with this overwhelming participation, our breakout rooms are expected to fill. So please plan ahead, and because of fire code regulations, there may be some times when we actually have to close the door. So we hope that you'll understand that you'll contact the presenters afterwards and they'll generously share their materials with you, but that, like me, you've marked 3 or 4 different things you want to go to each session and you'll take advantage of the next one. For social media lovers, please join the NCDA buzz by using hashtag NCDA Boston. Also, NCDA has started a Second Century Legacy Fund during the conference to strengthen our leadership succession, our research opportunities, and to help us develop a new website. So brochure was included in your packet with details, and you'll hear more about the fund as we go. But to help us raise $200,000 to secure NCDA's futures, those donations will be accepted at the registration desk. Okay. Also in the foyer, I'd love for you to take advantage and see the beautiful time capsule that's been created. It's available in the foyer, and we'll be housing that at NCDA headquarters. Tonight, the welcome reception will be in the exhibit hall starting at 6:30. We look forward to meeting you there and hope that you'll stop and talk with our exhibitors. The cabinet will be available there, so please take a chance to see it. The Massachusetts Career Development Association has received a proclamation for the Governor of Massachusetts. They have declared today National Career Development Day. The proclamation is also on display with the Historical Archives. The Japan Career Development Association has sent a nice formal greeting to NCDA, and that's available in the archives as well. Just a few housekeeping notes. There's some session changes, so if you have a pen, you might want to mark these down. Tuesday's committee meetings have been moved to the Harbor Room. If you're going to the committee meetings, your lunch will be in the room instead of the gallery. Roundtable 1-7 has been canceled, so please make a note of that. And the roundtables on Wednesday have been moved to Commonwealth A and B. Okay. Finally, session 801 has been moved to Commonwealth C. Beverage breaks are located in the exhibit hall. So you walk through the lobby down to the gallery, and then they'll also be available on the lobby level and on the mezzanine level. And finally, you may have noticed over on this side, I need a Vanna White over here, over on my side, there's been some beautiful artwork donated to NCDA in honor of Boston. The artist has agreed to offer limited edition 8x10 color prints that she'll sign for NCDA in honor of our centennial. So those will be $40, and they'll be available starting Tuesday in the registration area. So if you want to come up and take a look at the beautiful print in commemoration of our year in Boston, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the conference, and we'll see you later on this afternoon.